Kirby, to answer your question, we've been this in 2 years. So let's back up just a little bit. And you said, I left my W-2. The W-2 kind of left me, and it's been the blessing in disguise. I got laid off with COVID, and, I think 5 minutes after I got the phone call, I went and told my wife, hey, I got this, call from my boss, blah, blah, blah. Here's what's going on. She goes, great, now we can travel. And I'm like, let's let the dust settle for a little bit. And so for a year, next few days, I moped around the house. I was upset because it was a publicly traded company, and I don't know if anybody knows this. I didn't, but when folks are let off in a publicly traded company, then the company has to let you know who else in your pay grade or job description gets to stay and who else gets to go. And I saw that list, and I was like, what the hell? I know my sales team is outperforming their sales team. What is going on here? But anyway, I moped around for a little bit, and then I was like, you know what? We've been wanting to go full time. We've been wanting to do real estate investing full time. This is a perfect opportunity, and we've got the excuse to do it. I got kicked out of the nest, and let's see if we can fly. And that was, we celebrated that anniversary May 1st this year. So it's been a little over 2 years.
Wow.
But fast forward
at the time, you probably didn't think it'd be an anniversary you'd be celebrating, but
no. It was, I don't know. I kind of, because there was a lot of other folks that got laid off too. And they call, hey, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And I was like, I don't think I'm going back to the W-2 world. I don't, and people who have been following and been part of the W-2 capitalist mastermind, they were joking around and said, well, now is it going to be the 1099 capitalist? And I was like, well, I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I wasn't expecting it. Our sales numbers were off the charts. And, but to kind of get to your question, it has been an adventure. And when I say that, we're recording this. I'm sitting in a cabin in Northwest Georgia near Blue Ridge Mountains, and we're gonna leave here and we're gonna go some other places. Here's one thing I've learned about this whole thing is that my wife and I argue the most about where we're going and where we're going to stay. So I've removed myself from that aspect, and I said, here's our budget, and we got to have a really solid internet connection. You get those two things, let's just stay for a minimum of a month. Now, we have to kind of navigate around that. But I was like, let's stay for a minimum of a month where we're going to go. And sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. We get to see a lot of stuff that we wouldn't normally see. We've never been to Blue Ridge, Georgia. We're going to go see some family next, and then after that, we're headed off to I think somewhere in North Carolina, maybe Wilmington, as we make our way out to the coast to a spot we were at last year. We made it to the Outer Banks last year, and it's been one of the most biggest personal growth situations for me and for our family, right? Wow. And for our family, my wife and I, and we have 3 young kids, 7, 5, and just turned 3. So, we've done a little bit of everything. When we first took off last June, we converted our house to an Airbnb, right? And so we took off with my wife's SUV and a utility trailer. And because we knew we were going to be gone for a couple of seasons, so we had a lot of stuff we had to pack in there. And of course, we're learning this whole thing too, of what we need and what we don't need and what we can live without. And we made our way up the East Coast. We started in Florida, by the way. We started in Panhandle, Florida. Made our way up to the East Coast. Made it to Maine eventually, and then we got some disheartening news about Cassie's grandmother, my wife's grandmother, and so we had to come back home pretty quickly. But we made it through 18 states in about a little over 3 months, I think is what it was. Wow. And then we went home for a month. I was putting on the first W-2 Capitalist in-person conference, not too far from where we were living. And so we went and put that on. Then we bought an RV. And we did the RV thing for 6 months and then there's a whole nother story around the RV, but we no longer have the RV. And now we're back to Airbnb and staying in hotels and hopping from wherever we want to go to wherever we want to go. And it has been amazing to see our kids grow as much as they have. Now I mean, to be transparent, it is very challenging from a marital standpoint, and so we've grown together, and I've learned to adapt. I mean, I told you, hey, I got this set up like 30 minutes ago, and I'm sitting here anxious and getting nervous. Like, is the internet going to work? And luckily, it's held out very good so far. But yeah, it's one of those things we've ventured. I was looking at some pictures earlier this morning, and we went on a hike. It was like a Tuesday morning or something like that. We got up real early, went on a hike, got to this amazing waterfall, and I'm like, man, that was just 6 months ago. Right?
Wow.
And just thought about everything we've experienced since then, and it's just, I don't know. I'm upset with myself that I didn't have the same drive that my wife did. After 5 minutes of getting that phone call from a boss saying, all right, let's pack up and go. What do we got to do? Because we missed out a whole year of that, and we don't have an end date. People keep asking us, when are you going to be done with this? And I'm like, I don't know. I know right now we're not going back to Florida until September because our house is rented until then. so we've got until September to figure out, but then as long as it stays booked, we stay gone,
That's awesome.
Long-winded answer to your question.
There's so many other things that kind of came up in there for me that I'm curious about, like, schooling, because I have a about to be 5-year-old, a 2-year-old, and one on the way as well.
Yeah, congrats, man.
Thank you. Yeah. So I'll be in the same boat with 3, and we've talked about similarly, Indiana in January and February is pretty miserable.
So like hell on earth, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we've talked about, ideally being somewhere warm. We're looking at renting an Airbnb down in Florida, for about a month or so this winter. And then, eventually either buying something down there or traveling, so in terms of schooling, now your 7-year-old is in school. Are you guys I assume you're homeschooling. I mean, this is probably amazing education for him, just seeing, things as you travel.
I like to say but it's my wife that's doing the homeschooling.
Okay.
I am more the principal that walks around and tells everybody to be quiet, and she's the caring, nurturing teacher, and she does all the things. But yeah, this coming fall we'll have to, my son will be in. Oh man, will it be second grade? Maybe second grade and kindergarten, I think is what it is.
Okay.
And here's one thing we didn't really think about happening. Our 5-year-old, I don't know if this is good or not, but according to our pediatrician she can write her name. She can write her sister's name. And, when younger sisters see the older brother going to school, they're like, where's my school stuff? So we got them some school stuff, right? Mm-hmm. So basically it's dry erase markers and things they can trace that looks like letters and numbers and stuff like that. And so to us, when we are around, or, our pediatrician, or we're having the homeschool evaluation, they're like, he is so, my son's so advanced, our daughters are so advanced. This year really impressed us with a homeschool evaluation. The lady who did it, we remembered him from last year. Man, this kid's a good reader. And she goes, I'm not going to bring him the first grade reading lesson. I'm going to bring him the third grade reading lesson and see how he does, right, for his evaluation. And he passed it. She goes, well, next year I know I'm going to have to bring even higher. Right. And it's one of the, one of the coolest things that we do is we try to incorporate a school lesson, right, in everything we do. Not everything we do, but some stuff we do. Like if we go hiking on trails, we went hiking on this trail. That's a walking path. Okay. Let's call it what it is. It's a walking path. It's paved. It's, it's room for the stroller or whatnot. But along this walking path, there was, I think, 50 or so different trees. And luckily for us, they were all labeled and had the scientific name and whatever. So, but
you didn't know them by heart?
No. It was, it was all these not normal. Like I'm from Alabama, right? So if it's a pine tree or a maple, I can tell you what those kind of look like. But these were all just very unique trees to that area. And we got to one that was a fruit tree, and it was a fruit that we had never heard of, and we had just assumed that it was okay because we Googled it real quick, and it's like, yeah, you can make stuff out of it, but it's really sour and it's really bitter. Well, that turned into a challenge of, okay, who can eat one of these things? Because you taste the juice, and you pucker up. It's like a sour head for the first time. And so, we now talk about those memories, right? And homeschool, when I thought of homeschooling before we started doing it, I was like, man, what are you guys going to do for 8 hours a day? Because that's where, when I went to public school, right? It
Yeah.
was 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
No, it's not 8 hours a day. Homeschooling is not 8 hours a day. It's an hour and a half, 2 hours at the most. And the reason why we do that is because we want him to have Fridays off, and we kind of want to have Fridays off from school too. So it's an hour and a half, 2 hours, Monday through Thursday. There are days where we will go out and do stuff where we don't have school just because timing doesn't allow. So then there's a makeup day, and it's just the freedom of having that on your own schedule is pretty incredible. So
Yeah. I've heard that exact same thing from other people who have homeschooled as well, that, school is sort of like the same as that W-2 mindset. It's like, well, as long as you're sitting behind a desk for 8 hours, then you must be learning, and instead thinking through sort of the entrepreneurial lens that I think you and I are used to, in that you could actually get much better results in much less time, being smart and intentional about the way you structure your time at work or in school, just doing things that make a bigger impact rather than sitting there and memorizing over and over again or something like that. So it's not about the time, obviously your kids are way ahead and you spend less time teaching, but it's incorporating.
I like to think it's genetics is the reason they're ahead.
I'm sure that's it.
Yeah. One of the things too is like from a time standpoint is we didn't start schooling until I want to say mid-September maybe. And then we were done in April, like the beginning of April.
Wow.
And so while, we were still traveling and everything, and we were meeting some family and friends, and their cousins, our kids' cousins had to go to school, and like, are they not out for summer? Like, nope, not yet. That's the advantage of being a homeschool. So it's one of those things where, in a work, and here's one thing I've realized and getting pushed out the bird's nest of the corporate world has been, it's been something to adjust to, right? But because you got to think about when you're go into public school or private school or whatever the case is, you're taught from the time you're 5 years old, you got to be at a place at a certain time. You got to do what you're told to do. You got to sit at a desk until you're told to go somewhere else. You get to go to lunch when it's okay to go to lunch, and you get to take work home with you. So you're trained from the time you're 5 years old until you graduate and you go. So if you look at it that way, I'm just like, I don't necessarily want him just because our son's the oldest. I don't want any of our kids to feel like that's what they have to do to, and I'm using air quotes for people just listening, make it ahead. Right. It's one of those things where it's this huge, kind of going through what I did of being laid off and kind of getting to sit back and think, okay, how do entrepreneurs do it? Really turning up the side hustle and counting on it. It's amazing to think the amount of brainwashing that happens through that whole system. And I'm just like, man, I want our kids to be different. I do.
Yeah.
And friends and family who know what we're doing, and they kind of look at us in awe sometimes. And I feel like sometimes they look at us like we're crazy. And I'm okay with either one.
That's probably a good sign.